I mean, there are some bright spots, I think. You know, the recent 2017 numbers came out, the overdose death numbers, which showed that Maryland was still going up. And we went up several hundred. But what we did see in that is the heroin overdoses are starting to plateau a little bit. The prescription overdoses from prescription opiates are plateauing, so we're thinking that, okay, doctors are getting the message, patients are starting to get the message, people are starting to understand this. Unfortunately, fentanyl is what's driving the numbers higher. Fentanyl is an opiate, as you know. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin, but it's being manufactured illegally in China and across the southern border and being smuggled in the United States, and drug dealers are using it. Unfortunately, what we're also seeing is an increase in cocaine mixed with fentanyl. So for instance, last year this time I gave a talk at Easton High School. When I was returning from that talk, an overdose call came in for the Arby's parking lot. I went there, one of the Easton police officers showed up there, we administered Narcan. The young woman who then came out of her overdose because of the Narcan insisted that she was using cocaine. Her boyfriend was there, insisted they were just using cocaine, that they weren't using opiates. So believing them, we're like, well, the only way this Narcan worked was because of opiates. So unfortunately, I think people think that cocaine could be a safer alternative to heroin and not as addictive. That I've talked to some people in recovery, and I asked a good friend of mine in recovery, I said, why? Why would somebody be mixing? He said, Joe, think about it. And this person was addicted, said, when I was using cocaine, I didn't have to use every day. When I started using opiates, I had to use every day because it's a physical sickness, a physical withdrawal. He thinks the drug dealers are just trying to get people on the hook, which I think is probably has a lot of truth to it. And when you look at the 2017 numbers, the cocaine fentanyl mix is going up where everything else was starting to plateau. Interestingly, in Talbot, I think because of the health department's efforts here with the Narcan training, all the police departments trained in Narcan in Talbot County, EMS obviously have had that training for a number of years. Our deaths in 2018 right now in Talbot stand at 2, and that's still horrible. But our numbers are lower than this time last year. We should be at like that 5, 6, 7 range in Talbot County, same time last year. Where some of our surrounding counties, they're not seeing that dip, they're actually seeing the same or an increase. So, and I don't give that credit to the Talbot Goes Purple program, but I think it's because we're using more Narcan, that we're more aware, and I think some of the the Talbot Goes Purple thing helped to raise the awareness, and a lot of people got trained, and the health department would attend some of our events, and we were getting that message out. So the Good Samaritan Law, get Narcan trained, you know, I think that it's helping to reduce some deaths, but it's not the answer. We track the amount of non-fatal overdoses and fatal overdoses in Talbot County. Right now we're at about 26 as of mid-August, non-fatals and 2 fatal overdoses. The non-fatals are not down. They're about where they were last year, slightly higher than where they were, almost just by a few, but our fatals are down. So, and we're thinking because it's because of Narcan. There's a young man that I know in the community that I coached, that I talk to quite often, and he told me, Coach Joe, and he had been clean for about 2 years, and I asked him, well, 2 years, how does it feel? He's like, Coach Joe, it's still the last thing on my mind before I go to bed and the first thing on my mind when I wake up. I think every day is a critical day. I think, you know, the more time I'm guessing, or my observation gives them more strength. But whether it's 6 days or 6 months or 6 years, I think it's a daily battle for these folks. We met 4 years ago, and we talked about this, and there wasn't a whole lot of people talking about this stuff 4 years ago. And I think what really has surprised me and shocked me the most is the amount of people in our community that have been impacted by this. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's just,
Me too.
there's nobody. I don't talk to anybody that, unless they live under a rock or they live alone and, you know, don't connect with anybody, that haven't been impacted by this. And what's really not surprised me, because I knew that people would embrace, you know, learning and the message of what we're doing with the Talbot Goes Purple, but the amount of people that have come forward to help, the amount of people that want to help our community,
Yeah, yeah.
and the depth of their, not just I want to help Sheriff, but spending hours and hours. I was in here last night till almost 9 o'clock last night with a volunteer, and I got volunteers like writing every day, I want to be involved. And not because they want to promote anything, not because they have their own agenda, because they've been impacted. They've lost a child, or they know somebody that's lost somebody, or they have a loved one who's in recovery. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I knew it was the problem for Talbot, it was the problem for the Shore, it was the problem for Maryland. You know what I mean? I knew that. I think I was, people were looking at me like I was crazy at times, but I didn't realize that it was how bad it had gotten.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think I understood better than most, but it hasn't been until you get into this and people show up every day.
Yeah.
People are calling us every day for help. And it's, you know, getting them to the right resources and hoping and praying that, you know, that it's gonna change their life. For law enforcement, when you have a community that actually wants to come to the cops for help,
Right.
do you know what I mean? I mean, it speaks volumes for the quality of police officers that we have here and deputies that we have here, and it speaks volumes to the faith and trust our community has in us.